future is here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. You know, when we first started talking about the World Wide Web in 1992 in that book, The Whole Internet User's Guide and Catalog, there were only 200 websites. But the future was already here. People just didn't know it yet. So watching those people who are innovating from the edges is really important. Next slide. Okay. But this is not new. Here's a picture of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak and the first Apple I, which Steve Wozniak made in a wood shop. You know, he was just a kid having fun with this new personal computer revolution. All right? It's also not something that is limited to technology. Here's a picture of some of the first snowboards. This is now a multi-billion-dollar industry, but it was first some hackers who said, I wonder what would happen if we glued some skis together and you know, made a single ski, and what that would be, ask ourselves what it means. Next slide. And it usually means something big for business. Next slide. So this is one more example. This is a slide, a picture taken a few years ago at Burning Man, the festival out in the Black Rock Desert. Now, what's unusual about this photo? Well, it's a phone booth in the middle of the desert. How does a phone booth get out there, this makeshift city that grows up for a couple of weeks, you know, once a year? Well, it turns out that that phone booth is connected by Wi-Fi to a satellite uplink in the bus behind it. It's just a fun demonstration project. But what did it tell us? It told us that voice over IP was coming, that people were interested in routing around the phone companies. And of course, it told us that eBay would be acquiring Skype for a very large sum of money, right? Because voice over IP was a new thing. So we're celebrating this kind of world, actually, this very weekend. If you have time to escape from TieCon, you might go over to San Mateo to the Maker Faire, tell your friends about it. It's basically a celebration of the kinds of people who are doing a lot of these innovative things, particularly in the area where computing meets the physical world. Next slide. Right? We look at technology and we say, what does it mean? So I have a test for you guys, and I want to ask you a question. How many of you in the audience use Linux? We can kind of get this. Okay, so just keep your hands up. Okay, how many of you don't use Linux? Okay, now I want to ask, how many of you use Google? Okay, so what does your answer to that question tell you? It tells you that you think about the computer you use as what you actually have on your desktop or your laptop. But in that question was this whole new world of the internet as platform. Even the most ardent Linux advocates didn't realize that the killer app, you know, for Linux was not the GIMP, you know, which was a Photoshop clone, or OpenOffice trying to replace Microsoft Office. It was a new class of applications that were built on the internet as platform, Amazon, Google. And so I started thinking a lot about that. And I asked myself, what do all these applications have in common? So I look at Google, Yahoo, Amazon, MapQuest, Craigslist. You know, these were all built on top of Linux. Now, there's a couple of exceptions there. eBay and MySpace are on the Windows platform. But at the end of the day, this was something that was missed. There was a change in the way that technology was being deployed. And so I started thinking about that, and that's what we came to call Web 2.0. Okay, it was the idea that the internet is the new platform. But what's more, that there's a set of things that distinguish the companies that survived the dot-com bust from those that didn't. And so a lot of people look at this Web 2.0 idea and they're focused on things like blogs and wikis, and there's a lot of excitement about sharing, and it's all open and it's free, and you know, you might as well add to this graph peace and love, right? You know, you think that maybe, next slide, this is the second coming of the summer of love, and you know, it's all sort of the hippie revolution all over again. But in fact, that's not the case. Because of course we know that there are companies that are becoming incredibly profitable, Google being most notable, but many others, in fact people who are here, Salesforce.com, eBay, incredibly successful companies. What I believe Web 2.0 is about is harnessing network effects, right? Because in the network as platform, the thing that most distinguishes company is its ability to harness the intelligence of its users, right? Systems that harness network effects so that they get better the more people use them. So if you think about Google and look at it, PageRank was an understanding that you could actually study what people did, what documents they linked to, and that was actually even more powerful than just sort of looking at the algorithms. eBay, great classic story about network effects. Their content, contributing the content, made it easier for people to reuse it, right? And you look at this across all of the exciting new startups. It's about harnessing collective intelligence of users, right? So the more we can get people to annotate our data, provide our data, enhance our business, that is part of the success of Web 2.0. It's the science of network effects. Now, you have to ask, what does this mean for existing businesses? Because, of course, it doesn't just apply to the consumer internet. If the internet is becoming the platform, it means that all of us have to learn how to bring our users into our process, bring our users into our business. Showed a few years ago at a Google conference, and I thought it was so good I've been using it ever since, because it shows the top sites in internet traffic compared with their number of employees. And you notice Craigslist down there at number 7 doesn't look a lot like the others, right? That's a sign of just how powerful oh, I realized I was pressing the wrong button. That's why she wasn't getting the message. I was kind of pressing the reverse button. There's actually a sobering thought here. Craig kind of overstated this slide because he actually has increased the employee count by 25% in the last couple of years. Okay, so think about that. Now,